Welcome, everybody, Mr. Noah Lampert to the podcast. We're going to talk about visualization and exactly how to do it. He's going to give you 5 steps on how to do it coming up right after this drop. Today, I am very fortunate to have a show, Mr. Noah Lampert from the Synchronicity Podcast. He's a tarot reader, musician, as well as a very insightful person. We have some mutual friends, and I want to talk to him about some of the stuff that he talks about on his podcast, which has to do with imagination, which is the gateway to magic, to creativity, to the other side. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Noah. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of your. I wanted to start out with like, wake up in the dream, but I can't. Dude, but I've been really enjoying your stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to have you on.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. I love doing this.
Awesome. Well, you're out in LA, I guess.
No, I was in LA, and then right before the pandemic started, I went back to New York, and it's very fortuitous that I did. And so I've been in the Hudson Valley since February.
Okay.
And then it's been pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've been down in Georgia, so it's a little bit more, mellow. I have some friends in LA that I've been keeping up with.
Yeah, LA is definitely nuts. I mean, I go into Brooklyn every so often, just like for stuff, and like. Yeah, it's definitely a different vibe in like urban areas. It's not as chill and relaxing, for sure.
Yeah. So you're originally from New York and moved out to LA? Is that?
I'm originally from outside of DC in Maryland, and then I went to school in Boston, lived in New York for a while, then moved up here, and then spent some time in LA recently. But I've generally been on the East Coast. For most of my life, although I feel like that's going to be changing, not entirely, but like I'm definitely going to be traveling more and more. It kind of seems like the vibe.
So, you're bopping. You're moving around. You're scooting.
I'm bopping, man. I'm trying to I'm going to Turkey in a week. The country of Turkey. Yeah, dude. Against all odds, as it seems. They canceled my return flight, which I'm less concerned about. I'm not worried about getting back. That's fine. That's fine. We already have a plan if that's the case. But like getting there, I'm like, oh man, I'm not even saying if, like this imagination shit, if this shit really works for this in the middle of a pandemic, I'll just be like, look, guys, I don't know what other proof you need. It's fucking absurd. So
Right. No, that's great. That's a perfect topic for us to talk about, too. And the imagination stuff. I'm trying to, I want to try and use our power together, and of course there's stuff to do in the physical and to take action, but like magic being, or I don't know, when I first like learned about magic or visualization, I was like, wow, I mean, this seems so simple and so available, but it also makes a lot of sense. I mean, it was just like visualizations like imagine yourself in a circle, and like imagine nothing can touch you in the circle, just different things like that. And I think anything that we put our minds to has power, because there's power behind that. So however we want to like express that or use our imaginations to, alter our experience, and thus we are at the cause, in the physical world at the effect, then I think that makes a huge difference. So how did you get into like spirituality and starting to learn about visualization and other techniques?
I mean, 2 kind of different questions. I mean, spirituality, or what we would probably call that stuff, is just like shit that defied like logical, analytical explanation. I think I've always been like acutely aware and in tune with that since like a very young age. I think when I did psychedelics for the first time when I was 15, I took acid. I definitely like became more aware of it as a reality and more of like a functional driver, and just started reading a lot about the subconscious and different like traditions and practices, how people engage with that kind of stuff. Has always been like an avid interest of mine, and just something I found myself around. And then the imagination stuff, I mean, the manifestation, whatever the fuck people want to, like, I feel like I always knew how this, I feel like I always knew how this reality worked, but I didn't know how to like make it work. Like I knew the rules, but like didn't know how to play the game is the way I would describe it. And so I would say I clicked in at various times of like, and I always was like very gentle to myself. My reality has been, even if uncomfortable at times and painful, like pretty gentle, all things considered. But like last year, 2019, beginning second quarter, I don't know, spring, something happened. I mean, like I now know that there are these waves of consciousness that like hit the planet. And if we're playing that narrative of like duality, and like people can catch those waves. And it's very clear to see like when groups of people catch a certain wave and like kind of wake up at the same time or like connect at the same time. And I think I just caught one of those, and it just like lined up with all this shit that like it happened to me like 20 years ago, where like I had all these like premonitions and had to go through this whole thing of like feeling crazy and getting diagnosed and then transcending that and like this whole thing, and then like everything just kind of lined up, like, but not in like a delusional crazy like you're a crazy way, but like I was like, oh my god, like this is incredible. Like I have objective evidence that everything I thought before is not insane. And B, it came with this level of stability, which I think is important for any like imaginal or consciousness stuff. Like if you have a way to maintain your equilibrium, you can pretty much do whatever, because you'll always have this ability to balance in either direction if you're playing the polarity game. So I don't know. I just feel like now, I'm just doing exactly what I want when I want to do it. It doesn't mean like it doesn't mean that that's my felt experience all of the time, but like overall, it's like, this is just fun. It's easy. I can, theoretically not teach people how to do it, but reveal to people that they're in charge of this and that they can prove to themselves that this works, which is the only way I could ever really like own any label of like teacher or like helper, is like, here's the blueprint, you guys test it out. Like, don't take my word for it. I'm not like passing on some secret meditation master secret that like only I learned and like now you have to learn it from me. I'm like, test this shit out. If it doesn't work, fucking don't do it. You know what I mean? It's not something to buy or subscribe to. So yeah, it's fun stuff.
Oh, dude, that's great. I love that. Yeah. I'm all about like no guru. Somebody was like, "Who are you following right now?" And I'm like, "There are no masters. Like, we're all figuring this out for ourselves. We can't know anything beyond our own reality." But I think a couple of things that you just said were very interesting. That like I think we do have like a innate ability to know that this is how reality is created. And a lot of us probably know as young kids and probably use that. The consciousness wave is also really cool. I think that does happen. I think there are sort of like these like pops or, like you just like, I don't know, like just factions that bust or bubbles that pop and like people are just like, whoa. And then, other people around them too will kind of like catch a wave. That's really, really.
It makes sense too. Like what I understood, I guess, what I came across like a couple of decades ago at this point is that if you as an individual wake up for real, like, and you get this shit and you stabilize it, you basically will become like this bright beacon of light that wakes everyone up around you. And when enough of those happen in proximity to each other in like space-time here, it is like there's these huge catalysts of energies. It's like that Tesla coil thing where like you put the poles together and there's all this electricity in between. That's kind of what happens, I think, in this reality. And it's becoming so much clearer that our consciousness, imagination, which is what I subscribe to what Neville Goddard put forth, which just is my direct experience, is that that's God. Like whenever you read about God or a deity or some creative power, like they're just talking about your sense of I am. And you test this shit out by like what some people call visualization or imaginal techniques or whatever you want to call it. But you just imagine and feel shit as though it's happened. You say, oh, that's real. Live from that state. And then all this weird magical shit that defies kind of like practical Newtonian physics and, how shit causal effects happens. And you do it enough and you're just like, oh, okay. I guess this is actually how it works. And then, this will usually bring to the surface a lot of like shadow work and like, fear, doubts, things like that. And then you realize like those are good too. And then it just gets like abundantly more fun to kind of like create a life of like balance and harmony, which is what I think most, like, I'm pretty sure that's what everyone wants, like on any energetic level, just feeling like balanced and harmonious is like a pleasant state. So I think that's what people want.
Yeah, well, I think what people want, actually, oddly as it seems, is to be right. That's the most important thing, and we're willing to suffer for it. So
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
I mean, I think we do want to be happy, but there's this like, I don't know, there's this barrier there where we won't allow it, because we
Oh,
have to be right about our worldview.
oh
So
yeah. I'm like pretty not attached to my worldview. If someone was like tomorrow was like, hey, listen, here's the thing, like pancakes are actually the secret to the universe. Like you gotta go like study pancakes. They have everything, I'd be like, all right, I'll go study pancakes. Like if that's really what it is, I'm gonna go look at it. So like I really am like there's a talent or a skill, I think, to being flexible enough that you're not a flip flopper, that you're not just like willy nilly getting carried away with energy, which I've definitely been guilty of. But being open minded enough that being like, yeah, you know what? Maybe my perspective is just part of the puzzle. That's why when someone comes at me with like a wildly different perspective, I really try not to be judgmental, even if it's something like objectively like cruel or mean. Like it's just it doesn't serve you to be judgmental in those situations. And yeah, I mean that does a lot to have the feeling of having to be right, because that
mhm.
I don't feel like, I guess it gets me to in trouble. When I feel like I have to be right, I get in trouble. That's like I'm definitely going to get some conflict in my life if that's what's going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to be right, right? Like, if we weren't right about the reality that we experience, then we wouldn't survive. So it's a need to be right about our universe. Like, if I pick this thing up, then, or if I drop it, you know what I mean? Like, very simple caveman-y stuff. But obviously, what we're talking about is a step back. It's in the more imaginal realm, right? Which is more at the cause. So that's what's
Yeah.
interesting about talking about the imaginations. And I'm like open to employ any technique, because even somebody who, I don't know, I mean, even somebody who I don't agree with might have insight. So I agree with you there. One thing that you also talked about for a second is equilibrium, and I think that's really important. And I would love to chat about that a little bit. It's kind of hard to it's not, I know it's not an easy thing to talk about, but as far as like when you talk about equilibrium, are you speaking about desire specifically, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, equilibrium is just essential, I think, for navigating this world comfortably. And equilibrium doesn't imply only this static state of like perfect balance. That's nice, but sometimes we learn equilibrium by going too high or too low, or like whatever you want to call it energetically. Like, I had a series of days here in Mercury retrograde and whatever the fucking shit is in Cancer, and it's just like pulling on my emotions, where I was like, it's like acid. I was like wildly emotionally, like not wild, but like for me, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I'm crying all the time, not in like a sad, fucking, but just like the smallest thing, like songs. I'm like, what is this? But that to me is like, I learned that that's one side of the spectrum, or that's on a kind of polarity of the spectrum. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Like, that's something. I'm not going to live like that. Like, that to me is like something that I'm like, cool. And I also found value in it too. And I'm starting to really learn, like, there really is value to what we call negative emotions, like being sad or scared. There's so much value there. To be able to feel that is like, when you can actually be grateful for that, I think you get more of a choice in terms of how you experience the world. Like you don't have to be like fearful or distance yourself from certain experiences, which thereby it like gives you more control. And so that's the whole thing with the balance, is like, I really do fundamentally believe that as like unlimited beings of omnipotent like compassion and just like everything, like we have this let's just say everything, just everything, but we do have this ability to kind of dictate our experience, not in specificity and outcome like in this world so much, but like how we feel and navigate through it. And I've just found like we can do a lot more and get a lot more done in like a fun duality linear time way, when we're not like latched on to energies that like feel like they own us, because that's never accurate. I think that's what's so dissatisfying about like feeling stuck in something. It's like it's you're doing it to yourself. That's what's so frustrating, I think, to people. And if you can't like kind of reconcile that, it's difficult. But balance, balance is just a feeling. And I do think, as foolish as this may sound, I do think writing down like I am balanced, you know, just like one or a few times in a journal with the pen before you go to sleep or just whenever throughout the day, like that shit really works. And like you'll learn kind of what the feeling feels like, and who knows how long you stay there. But as you like stay there, you get more familiar with it. And then when you get off balance, you can be like, you know what? I'm going to invoke the feeling of balance. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen right then. Like for me, I was aware that I wanted balance like 4 days ago. It took me like fucking 3 days to get over that. So like, it doesn't mean it comes right away, but you just know that it's a feeling that will be coming into your reality. And then it comes. And that's how everything works. And that, I think, for some people is exciting, some people terrifying, most people both. And it's fun. That's the truth. It's fun. Like that, you wouldn't do this shit if you didn't want to do it. That's the whole point. Like that's what I think people should remember is like, you wouldn't be here doing this, experiencing this right now. There's plenty of opportunities to jump off this ride, infinite opportunities. Like, but if you're here, you know, it's fun. You might as well. You know.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You know, I think that's one thing in the spiritual movement that kind of gets glossed over or overlooked sometimes. Feel your feelings, you know, don't be in denial about that. That's what's there to teach you. And also going through, you know, the stages of grief, you know, like allowing yourself to healthfully, emotionally heal from things, you know, and I agree with you too, that there's beauty in really every experience. Why else would you come here? You wouldn't come here just to eat cotton candy. You know, it's like you want to have this full range of experience. Otherwise, what was the point, you know?
Yeah, and if you just want to eat cotton candy, you can just eat cotton candy. There's nothing wrong with that too. Like, it's up to you. It's where you find value. It's what you are able to appreciate. If you're able to appreciate anything, then you won't judge experiences so harshly. It doesn't mean like I said, I've set myself up probably from long before I was born, because it doesn't feel conscious at times, of like a pretty fucking smooth existence. And like, I've tried to knock myself off the ride of smooth existence. It's like, nah, it's gonna be smooth. And it doesn't mean I won't deal with uncomfortable and painful things again, but it's just like pretty fucking smooth. You know what I mean? Like, especially when I hear like a lot of people who like really recognize kind of this creative principle and are like kind of creating their lives like from a metaphysical standpoint. Like a lot of them, I was just listening to Jessa, Lacey, Tiara, and Amy on Jess's latest podcast. Like all of their stories of like how they, you know, came online with like their powers and shit are like trauma. And I'm like, mine was like acid. Like my shit, I have like it's not that I haven't experienced trauma, don't get me wrong, but like my powers were not bootstrapped by a specific traumatic experience. So I'm very grateful for that. And I don't take it for granted. And I think if I am able to navigate this world relatively smoothly and with grace, like it's kind of my responsibility, not in like a burdensome way, to like at least communicate how I'm going through it at the very least, especially if I find something that I think is replicable by anyone else. So that's kind of the goal.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And, you know, going along with that balance, you know, that being something that I think the emotions, a lot of traumas do lead people to, you know, new realizations, you know, about themselves. And at the same time, following those negative emotions, that's going to be a way to find what needs work, where you need to maybe do some healing. And also, I think when we think about things that we don't think we're worthy of, maybe we put on a bit of a pedestal, that's also very telling, right? So attaining that balance and getting to that point, because I mean, we're, you know, in the consciousness scale, at least I'll speak for myself. I am all over that thing. You know what I mean? Like 1 second I'm angry, the next I'm enlightened, 2 minutes later I'm just hungry, you know, like I just like, so, I mean, it's funny because we think about this spiritual journey as this, like, I'm going to get to this next level. I'm going to level up, but it's like, dude, we're going through all the levels fucking all the time, you know? Like,
yeah. That's super important. Yeah.
So the balance thing about it is something that, I don't know, it's taken me kind of a while to get a handle on that.
Well, it's not that you don't recognize there's a lot going on and that you move through emotions quickly or kind of in a scattered way. It's that if that's comfortable for you, then by all means continue it. If it's uncomfortable, you can be like, you know what, I'd like to not have this right now and see how that feels. And that, again, it sounds so simplistic and foolish. And I get in trouble with this with my partner sometimes, especially when she's going through some like physical, metaphysical, to me, it feels like a very like physical emanation of an emotional or metaphysical thing. To her, it just feels physical. When I say it's like, it's just easy. Just imagine she gets furious. But nevertheless, if you invoke and feel a feeling of balance, which everyone has felt at some point in their life, they felt the feeling of balance or calm or fulfilling at some point, even if it was just a flash, at one point in one specific area, you felt the feeling, you basically transpose the feeling and you put it on your current state and your future state and you say, oh, okay, that's going to, and you accept it and then you just let it go. And if it comes back and I know how that goes, it's okay. Just persist. You know how this shit works. Really just persist. And then it does have this weird effect, especially if you do it before you go to sleep, where just you feel qualitatively different. And you can say, well, I don't know exactly what the mechanism is here or what it is, but you don't need to know. You feel different. You start to feel this qualitative sense of balance in areas where you wouldn't have otherwise felt it. I know this is someone who used to get wildly angry. Like it just like, things were bothering me. And I just decided like I'm done with that feeling. And also, I'll be clear, like that also affected my relationships where I lived. It really like it changes your life in other ways. It's not as straightforward as just like, oh, you're in the same exact life and there's not anger. You move to a different timeline or version of yourself that, no longer has those qualities. You're fundamentally a different person, but you choose that version of person you want to be with your imagination, with your consciousness, but really the feeling. And then I think the most important thing, like a revelation I had today that I've realized before, but remembered again today, is that like you do it by falling in love with the version of you that you want to be, that you feel like you're not now, but then you go, oh, you know what? There's a version of me. I love that version. That's actually who I am. When you fall in love with anything, it really like you begin to embody it. And it's pretty sweet. So, if you fall in love with the idea of being a balanced person, you will be. And then even if you feel off balance, you'll be like, oh, this is just part of being a balanced person. No big deal. And it'll start to calibrate to your liking. That's the best advice I could give. And then test this shit. Don't take my word for it, obviously.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah. So moving from like sort of individual, kind of thing to more of a just an idea of like as a group, how we can influence the reality around us. A couple of things I want to talk about or touch upon, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But like as far as like visualization, even in your own individual, like the imagining a specific person or versus like imagining just an empty sort of caricature of a specific person in a visualization that you are personally doing. Let's say you want to, I don't know, improve your job or something, right? And there's a couple of different ways to visualize a change there. You could try to visualize the exact scenario that's going to happen, which in my experience fails every single time. Or you can try and visualize a sort of generalized version of it. And here's really kind of what I want to talk about free will, I guess, here, as far as visualization goes. And I know since you're a tarot reader, I've only had a few readings, but I know that's one thing that whenever I've been in a reading, they've been like, well, I don't want to, go past free will here. And I'm not really sure exactly how that would work, but I do understand it from the concept of visualization and imagination. When I have an idea, or if I get mad at somebody in my mind and they aren't aware of it, they don't know that I was mad at them. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe. How do you know?
Well,
maybe they do know you're mad at them. Shit is connected in very strange ways. I'm not saying every time you have a thought of being mad at someone that they're like, oh, Owen's mad at me. I'm just saying there's this shit is the whole thing as I see it is you're literally, not conceptually, literally the the creator, sustainer, and destroyer of everything you perceive, you yourself. So recognizing that, like, you don't hold yourself to some like weird standard of like never being mad and never getting angry, but I certainly believe that the mental is another more subtle way of communication than just saying something out loud. That's why when you get around someone, if they're mad at you, they don't have to say shit. Even if they're not looking, even if they're pleasant, they're totally the same. You're just like, oh, yo. Even because, I don't know, if you've been in relationships, sometimes, you have to socialize with people while you're in the middle of like a little thing, and you got to put on the normal person. It's like, they all know you're in a fight. Like, everyone can feel it. So like the thing is that like this shit does actually travel, but it's not like to the other person so much. It's an internal process of how you feel about a person, because the way you conceive of another does create that to some extent. In reality, the mitigating factors is that person you're thinking of really understands this principle. They're relatively immune from your conception of them. In your world, they'll hold that role, but like to everyone else, it'll be something else. So it is kind of like, if you really understand this shit, I don't care if someone thinks I'm an asshole. If I was an asshole to them, I might care, but that's my own shit to rectify and deal with. But like, if someone like listens to my, you can't buy into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess what I should say is, like, if I have like a full-on discussion in my mind about somebody, they don't know that I had that discussion with them, right?
No, not the knowledge of it, but I would say the energy of it certainly, it does have an influence on your world and them in your world. That's all I'm saying, to be aware of. Yes, of course I know. Yes, I'm acknowledging in 3D world, that would be such a terrible place if everyone had like thought bubbles above their head that stayed there for everyone to see, like red text messages. Oh God.
Oh my God. No, we're going there. It's going to happen. No, we're all going to just read each other's thoughts. No, but I mean, yeah, I guess it's just unfair. And this has been maybe just a personal thing that I've done in the past, right? Like, before I realized the power of my imagination, I would literally have like discussions with people in my mind, and of course they're none the wiser to the discussion that I had with them in our mind, and the things that maybe expectations that I might place on them and things like that. So I want to be clear about visualization, and as far as that involves other people within that world of visualization.
Yeah, I mean, in visualization, when I deal with other people, is the best thing you can do with any of this shit is just to use it lovingly. Just imagine the best version of the person, even if they're demonstrating in this world, or energetically even kind of like quote unquote negative behavior, or just like drama and shit. You just imagine them being good and happy, because most people, as people know, like, people act like assholes because of trauma or fear, or just like it's an unhealthy reaction more often than not than something else. Now, that being said, there are times when people act like assholes and our perception is just wrong. Like, they might not actually be being an asshole. It's just our perception of it as being an asshole. That's important to point out too. But what solves all of these issues is just imagining the person like fulfilled, happy, and demonstrating behavior in your mind to you. So if you're having a conversation in your head with someone, just have the quick conversation where they're acting exactly how you would want to see them act if they were to be the person who's happy and fulfilled. And you'll know, like, it kind of is this, you don't puppet string people. You don't imagine them being like, they'll do exactly what I want, and then they'll just say this. But like, you're really just whatever it is. It's not for you to decide what makes them happy and fulfilled, but just imagine that. Then you're off the hook. Then you don't have to be mad at them. Then you're just like, okay, next, I can move on to the next thing. That's a really good way of getting out of the pattern of arguing with people in your head. If it doesn't feel productive, if it feels productive, keep doing it,
No, fair enough. Yeah, no, I totally understand. But yeah, just trying to keep other people's, but there are people who claim to be able to puppet string people too in this whole thing. I don't know if you're aware of like the specific person movement or what have you. I've seen a few of those videos, and
yeah, I see it on the Neville Goddard subreddit. I think it's fine. There's examples of it. It's to each their own. I didn't use that technique. I found when I actually used it for specific people, other people came in my life and if I had been fixated or even acted on what I had imagined, I would have probably been missing out on like the best relationship of my life. So I really don't have this stuff be outcome related as much as possible. I do sometimes, like I said, I'm going to Turkey. I imagine walking off the gate and, you know, specific things that would prove to me that it's real. But, you know, outside of those very rare occasions where it's like, all right, let's test this stuff in 3D world, like it's really just the feeling of being in a perfect relationship. Let it come to you.
Yeah.
Be the person who embodies the qualities that you would want in another. You know, who do you want in a partner? What do you want in a relationship? Someone who's loving, attractive, cool, funny, nice, kind, you know, whatever it is, daring, sexy, whatever the fuck it is. Give yourself those qualities. I use that mirror technique where you imagine yourself in front of a mirror in your mind and you give yourself those qualities and people are like, what does that mean? Whatever it looks like to you when you look in a mirror and feel fulfilled and happy and kind. You know, like whatever it is and sexy and attractive. And if it takes a while, if you get stuck, you're like, oh, I don't feel attractive. Then fucking work at it. Find the version of you. Also, like for me, I can just say from like physical appearance stuff, because people are like, well, you know, you don't do the physical, you know, you got to do the physical work. I gained like probably after college when I got like engaged, like 20, 30 pounds. And I was vegan, I lost the weight, but it wasn't like a healthy way of eating for me. It was kind of too preachy. It's kind of an annoying fucking vegan. So then for 2.5 years I did this. And my poor wife at the time, fucking, you know, just nightmare person. Just to gain the weight, always trying to do this shit, running, all this stuff. Then one day when I understood this imagination stuff, I was like, I think I'm just like going to imagine myself in really good shape. And since then, it's only been a year. Dropped like 30 pounds. I enjoy exercise. It's not like something that bothers me. I do it when I want to do it. I eat McDonald's. I eat a shitload of ice cream. I'm in the best shape of my life because it doesn't have anything to fucking do with a specific diet. Your belief in that diet is what actually changes your physical form. And that sounds so stupid and like anti-science, but it's not. And I'm sure science will catch up or harmonize with that being a reality because I see it in my own life. I can't talk like this. I'm not that good of a liar at this stage in my life to be able to talk like this if it weren't true. I was a liar when I was a kid. I was a little shit liar. And I probably wasn't even good then. And probably everyone knew I was lying. So I just gave up lying because it's like, who the fuck wants to waste their time? It's so much managing and stuff. So I only say this from direct experience in my life. Like, imagine yourself to be the person you want to be. Fall in love with that version of yourself and watch what happens in your life. It's the best.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's awesome. Yeah, cool. So when we visualize ourselves in, a situation with other people, just imagine what is best for them, what they would want. That's also going to put us off the hook. We're not like influencing them or manipulating them emotionally, but we're giving them or allowing them to be at their best version of themselves, and then finding a version of ourselves that we really like and falling in love with that. What do you think? What's the best way? Is that to write down what that version of yourself looks like?
Writing down is really effective. I don't do it that much, admittedly. I think you just have to keep yourself honest. And if you deviate, you'll probably set up some structure in your life that pushes you back on course at this point. And that's important to honor and be aware of. And, I don't know that there's much else out there besides our own internal sense of discomfort that shows us that we're on the right or wrong track. You know what I mean? Like when you're really off track, even if it's a low level discomfort, you're going to feel it somewhere in you. But if you're following exactly what you love, what you want to be doing, you'll know it. And I think everyone is kind of being asked to investigate that right now because the whole world shut down. It's still shutting down. Every time it tries to open up, and it's getting better. People are kind of breaking through the illusion of this virus owning the reality of this world, but it's still in the middle of its run probably. And people are like, all right, what the fuck are we going to do now? Like, what am I going to do? I can't go to work really, for a lot of people. I can't go out, do the things I used to do in the way I used to do them. So that's an opportunity. What do you want to be doing? This is a glimpse of this new world, this new future that's emerging. It's like, what do you want to do? And just be honest with yourself and do it. That's the other part. Like, you gotta fucking do it. You can be patient with yourself, but still do it.
That's great. Yeah. Love it, man. This is really this has been a dense chat, you know.
Yeah, this is literally how all of my I'm exhausting.
No, it's not you. It's really good. No, this is awesome. Really happy to to broach some of these topics because it's going to be really, really helpful, you know, for me and a lot of us. We have to start with ourselves and begin with like, you know, so let's talk about maybe some techniques, some visualization techniques. You talk a lot about feeling. That's important. Are there any tricks or tips as far as inducing that? And getting, you know, what if, you know, and maybe too, like, what if people have some roadblocks in their imaginations? Are there some ways that they could overcome those?
Well, the easy way while you're awake is to find modalities or things you can do that remind you that this is like, I don't know, it's not a simulation. It's kind of like a hackney. I don't know. I don't love that view of the world, but that there's magic everywhere, that it's much more subtle, it's much more wavy, it's much more like nebulous than we like to believe it is. So like something that I think most people can access is music. So like on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever people YouTube, find a grouping of songs that you can put on some type of shuffle and just shuffle shit around and let the music talk to you about what's going on to you. Notice your reactions to certain songs or lyrics, and you can skip or at will and just see what's going on. So you can at least build this interface between you and what we call the subconscious or intuitive mind, which is really running the show here. So that's just like a 3D practical thing that I think is useful, that I caught myself doing a lot. If you really want something specific, let's say you have a poverty mentality where you just feel like, you know, you just don't have enough money. You want more money. You need more money. Got to have that money, which is totally fine, totally cool. There's nothing wrong with it. If you think there's something wrong with it, guess what? Even if you get the money, it's not going to be satisfying. But if you know there's nothing wrong with it, you can at least start approaching it in a right way. I talk about this a lot with crypto stuff because it's such a wild thing. But anyway, if this is your approach, like you just imagine, you can do the visualization if you want. It works. It does. You imagine yourself from within your own perspective, preferably while you're going to sleep. Right? There's the whole Neville Goddard thing, state akin to sleep. It's fine. It's just like you're going to sleep, twilight sleep, going to sleep. So no big deal. You don't have to be weird about it. Just go to sleep. As you're going to sleep, you just imagine in your mind's eye. If you can't visually do it, you can hear something reaffirming it. But you imagine something that implies you already have the money. So what do you want to do with the money? Do you just want to hoard it? Then you would imagine a large number in a bank account. Do you want to spend it on something? Then what would the thing be that you want to spend it on? Because I found a lot of times what people think they want with money is, you know, they want to buy this beautiful house and live in this beautiful place and have this beautiful car, get these beautiful toys, and it's like, what? You don't need money for that. Like there's an infinite spectrum of possibility to have any of those things pop up in your reality. So it actually, money is a useful tool towards driving towards that. But let's say you just have regular bills and you want them paid. You want more freedom of mind and peace, and you don't have to be worrying about money. You imagine a scene that implies you have it. It can be as simple as you speaking to a friend and them saying, wow, you seem really happy right now. And you're like, yeah, you know, like it's been really easy. Things are going really well for me. I've been doing really well. You know, things are great. I'm really comfortable and I'm living the life I want. Just something simple, really short, like 5 seconds or less. Play it over. Oh, give it the tones of reality. That's a Neville Goddard thing. Feel the feeling from within your own perspective. So this isn't you watching a scene of yourself in like a movie. It's from within your own body, because that's a more real reality than this one. You do that, you feel it, you know it's happened, you let it go and you're done. That's it. You can do it more. People are like, what happens if I do it more? Is it bad to do it more? Do it as much as you want. I did it obsessively when I found out about it. It worked. I did it casually. I do it super casually now. It works. It always works, because what's going on is your consciousness is literally creating what you perceive this reality to be. When you use your imagination, it's a more subtle but higher level of consciousness, not in a value judgment way. It's not better than. It's just a higher up. It cascades down from that level of reality, the imaginal reality, into this reality. So that's just how it works from like a narrative standpoint. Test it, try it, prove it to yourself, and then, you know, apply it as needed. I recommend not using it for other people, because you'll realize that other people are just you truthfully, it's your energy that's creating the situation, whatever you're viewing anyway. But if you do, just apply the golden rule and be honest with yourself. You know, if someone did this to me, would I like that? And if you say, yeah, you know what, I would. You know, if I'm just going to make someone eternally happy forever, and they'll figure out that they always had the power to do it and they'll discover it in their own way. Would I like that? Sure. Yeah, I'll do that. Then I'll do that for someone else. But you just have to be honest about what you're doing. But you do that, man. That's it. Just do that. It's literally try it, prove it to yourself, and have fun.
That's awesome. It is fun. It's fun when you can step back and allow yourself to enjoy it. So I'll go back through the steps, I think, and tell me if I got this right. Create a scene that implies you have the thing that you want.
When you're going to sleep. When you're going to sleep.
And feel the feeling. Visualize it from the first person in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Know it happened. Let it go. And if there's other people involved, and do it as many times as you want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then if there's other people involved, apply the golden rule.
Yes.
Yeah. So awesome.
That's it. It's literally, that's like the easiest way to prove to yourself that this is how this reality works. And then when you do that, and if you fail, quote unquote, like it doesn't happen, you got to persist. That's what's going on. Like you need to prove this to yourself beyond a shadow of a doubt. So sometimes you're going to have these perceived failures in quote marks, and like you persist. Don't be a pussy about it. You know what I mean? Like fucking keep doing what you need to do and see what happens. That's like a very core message, that like what you persist in imaginally will inevitably happen. You know, if you get the signs that maybe it's not worth pursuing, then fucking by all means. But if this feels like something deeply in your heart that you want, persist. For real. So yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, just keep going forward. And that's I think a lot of us, we go through and meet goals, and then as soon as we meet those goals, we're like, oh well, now I want something else. I mean, that's just the constant process of growing and evolving, and finding new things to give ourselves over to, or ways to help, or what have you. But yeah, that's really cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, the simplicity of that, because, that's, I don't know, that's so helpful. Brevity is the soul of wit, and just being able to go through like boom, 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 boom. Here's what it looks like. Put that image in your mind when you're going to sleep. It's kind of like between the dream world and the physical world, that sort of spot, and then don't stop. Because I mean, truly, I mean, why would, if you believe in God or whatever, whatever source of like divinity or whatever you want to call that, but why would you have a desire that should remain unfulfilled? It just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know why anyone would do that. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you just want to like really, desires will show you who you are, not because you're going to achieve every single one. And that shouldn't freak you out. If it does, whatever. But like sometimes you're misplaced in where you want. But if you're clear about what you want, scratch the fucking itch for real. Like that's just what you're meant to do.
Yep.
So do it.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Well, man, that's fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna talk about this, or I'm gonna try this out later this afternoon, in fact. And it's something that I have done some of in the past, but I haven't done a whole lot of visualization stuff. Like mostly what I've done is I've definitely felt the feelings, the feelings of joy, abundance, and things like that. And that's definitely put me in a position to choose from a lot of really positive opportunities or options or lifelines or whatever.
Yeah.
But I haven't been super specific because, like, honestly, I get afraid of it. Like, I'm afraid that if I like specifically put myself in a place, and it's kind of like what you said about like, if you envision, some specific particular outcome, you trap yourself there.
You can't be afraid of failing either, though. That's a very important thing. Like, it's like, you have to go for it sometimes to prove to yourself that that's possible. Otherwise, we live in this state of kind of like perpetual, like, oh, I don't really know. Like that's what I'm learning. Like with my bigger kind of imaginal acts, where like, it's real deal shit. Like in my life, that's important to me. I just know my reactions to it. I know what it feels like also when when something has happened in my life and there's been like a real shift, and just like latching onto that and accepting it and then letting it go. It's like really take the same perspective as like something you know has already happened. You know, if you know what it's like to, you know, have eaten what your last meal was, no one's going to shake you from that. No one's going to be like, you don't know what that's. You're like, I definitely know what it feels like to. I know exactly what it was. I know how it tasted. I know all that. That's the same level of conviction you need to have in whatever it is in your life. And that can be a specific outcome. Like, you know, you can imagine a very big thing for yourself, and that's totally cool. But, you know, don't do it. Don't do it, but like, you don't want to manicure every aspect of your life. Be careful of doing that. You know, the feeling of what it's like. It could be something else. Like, say you want to win a big award. Does it have to be that specific award? Or is it just the feeling of accolade that you would want? The respect of your peers. That's, you know what I mean? It's like there's different ways to look at this, and be still capture the feeling that you want. So yeah.
So don't be too specifically like attached to that image. Instead, be attached to the feeling, but
Yes.
not the specific image, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think attached is an okay word for that. I know that can make some people recoil, but I think it is okay to like attach yourself to a feeling of and just let that happen. And then you'll use it as you see fit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, that's great. That's fantastic. This has been a very dense episode for me. I'm gonna have to listen to this again.
Good luck.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate it, man. It's great. I'm glad we were able to catch up. And please tell people where they can find you, how they can support your work.
Patreon, Instagram, podcast Synchronicity, syncpodcast.com. My name, Noah Lampert. Lampert with the P. I'm gonna start saying that. People keep fucking my name up. But I'm everywhere. I'm a regular, normal denizen of the internet who's very accessible.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, and I'll be sure to add all your links in the show notes so everybody can just click.
Yeah. Thanks.
But yeah, awesome. Of course. Yeah, and thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate it. Yeah, everybody check out Noah's podcast and check him out on all of the channels. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. You can check me out on Patreon as well, .com/Bootsy Greenwood and Bootsy Greenwood all over the place. Noah Lampert all over the place, Bootsy Greenwood all over the place. Thanks everybody for listening. We really appreciate it.
Peace.